Hello and shalom. This is J. Rivka Asulin, founder and executive director of Ancient Roots Israel. Ancient Roots Israel is the first international herbal conference and community in Israel. Welcome to today's virtual plant walk. I've got a couple of my sons with me, and we are still looking for submissions for the virtual plant walk. Because if this is going to be all about me, this is probably going to start being less frequent, especially as we approach the Chagim. But today, there is something really cool that I want to show you. And we are headed just around the corner from our house to have a look at a pine tree. So I'm going to show you this tree and my boys. Okay, so we've got this beautiful, beautiful pine, which my app has identified as an Aleppo pine. Wow, it is really, really, really big, really tall, and really beautiful. And I'm going to show you one of the little baby pine cones. Okay. But we're not actually identifying the specific pine, which is why I haven't looked into it so well. I'm not sure how much detail you're getting. Here's some more mature pine cones. Although I do believe it's an Aleppo pine because I've tried to figure out what this particular pine is quite a few times, and that's what I've come up with. But what I want to talk about today is pine pitch. And some of the medicinal uses. Now, herbalist Nicole Cohen Yecheskel, I might be reversing her name, she gave the first aid workshop at Ancient Roots Israel, and she taught me that any of the pines can be used interchangeably in Israel, but I have learned that not all pines all over the world are all equally safe to use. But according to Nicole, the ones in Israel are. Of course, before I would do that, I would make sure I would try to identify the particular pine that I had, and I would try to make sure that I would definitely make sure that that's edible. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera again, and I'm going to show you what pine pitch is. Now, sometimes I use different terms interchangeably, but botanically, that's not right from what I understand. But I use sap, tar, pitch, and other things. What?
The main name is sap.
Well, sap is what's running through the trees, and it's more this kind of watery, life-giving, like the blood of the tree. But the pitch is like the coagulated protection of the tree.
So this would be the pitch?
No, I'm going to show it to you. Okay, so do you see it? It's this sticky kind of resinous, exactly. When there's been an injury, when an insect has been chewing on it or something, or here someone has nailed a bunch of nails into the tree, and you can see... Okay, wait, I'll get in a second. You can see this pitch. Actually, this is the one we looked at yesterday, but it's kind of here.
It's drying up.
It's kind of drying up, and it's seeped some more. Where do you see some more?
There's one right there. That's what's going on.
Okay, so anytime the tree's been injured, can you see that? So that's the pitch, and anyone else with more of a botanical background, who's not a homespun kind of community herbalist like I am, can weigh in on all the best technical terms. But this kind of drippy, super duper sticky, let me see. Oh, there, yeah. I was just gonna try and push that for you so you could see it come up. Okay, so I might sacrifice my fingers at some point. This is super, super sticky. If you smell it, I have a little bit on my finger, and I'm smelling it. I'll show you that. It's really intense pine smell. Super, super intense. So anyway, this is the pitch, and the pitch has some great medicinal uses. If you have got a bleeding wound or even a festering kind of wound, you want to take some of this and smear it over the wound. It is antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral, although to the degree of antiviral is kind of up in the air. Antifungal. It can be used for anything with the skin, anything at all. So we're talking about acne. We're talking about psoriasis. We're talking about cuts, wounds. We're talking about fungal infections. I wonder how this would work on a nail fungus. Pele, what he thinks.
I don't know.
There's only one way to find out. Okay, so one of the cool things about pine pitch is that it's not water soluble or soluble. Sorry. But it is soluble in oil. So that is one thing to do. And you can also make a glyceride in place of a tincture, because I think that most tinctures, unless you're using a super high percentage of alcohol, there's just too much water to really break it down. When you are making your pitch oils or tinctures, and there's debate whether or not a glycerin or glyceride is a true tincture, but I'll put that in your capable hands to discuss later. You want that to kind of hang out in your menstruum for 8 weeks or more. And you want as much of the pitch as you can to break down. I would fill up your container about a fourth of the way full, and then cover with the menstruum. Right, you don't want to hurt the tree. Kelly's absolutely right. So you want a tree that's kind of already naturally oozing. I wouldn't go cause wounds to a tree. I'm trying to look for some more on purpose. But sometimes you will find a tree that's just being eaten alive by insects and has just huge amounts of pitch hanging out everywhere. And that would be a good tree to harvest from. Or, of course, if you can harvest from a branch, that's another good option. I'm surrounded by cypresses here behind me, and not other. I'm looking for other pines. We might do a little look, and also the mastic that Ruvain showed us behind me. So lots of cool, interesting things. Here's another pine over this way. I'll video that. Okay, so we've got another pine here, and with a cat under it, yeah. But to get to that trunk is going to be kind of difficult, and it's still a young tree. This one's pretty mature, so this is a better option. Okay. Anywho, you can take the sap and put it, or the pitch, and put it directly on your skin condition. Or you can make a glyceride with it and add something like a witch hazel, basically to thin it out, and then make a spray and spray it on your face if you have acne or whatever. If your acne is a bacterial infection, or is caused by your cystic acne is caused by a bacterial infection, you may find this really helpful. But if there's some underlying cause, hormones or whatever, you'll be able to probably control the acne with it, but not eradicate it entirely. Oh, do I need the disclaimer again? These are traditional uses of the pine tree. Okay, I am not claiming any cures with herbal medicine. Okay. Anyway, so, right. Okay. So, but you want to get it in an oil and break it down. And the cool thing is, after your pitch has been in the oil for 8+ weeks, you can start taking off some of the oil. You can use the oil directly. You can use it as a base for salves and creams, and other things, balms and this sort of thing. And then you can add more oil. As long as you have some pitch left in your container, you can just keep adding oil, because you're gonna, until it's invisible, until it's gone, until it's totally disintegrated into your menstruum, you have medicinal properties that are usable. So that is about the pitch. Oh, and if you get it on your finger, okay, I'm over here. If you get it on your finger, it is very, very sticky. Look how pretty that is. So pretty, amber color. Okay, so here's some more over here that's dried out. So here are a few tips to harvesting that may help you. Here's some that's kind of dried. Look at that. Can you see that? Okay. So this is more kind of dried up. Looks like amber, which is what it is, right? Okay. So, oh, and don't worry about little bits of bark and things in your pitch. That is medicinal too, and that's part of the fun. And you know, like, unless you've got insects you just want to pull out, like here's an insect that's going to work. Okay, gone now. Maybe I missed it. Looked like an ant for a second. Oh yeah, here it is. If I can see it. Yeah, there we are. At any rate, I don't even remember where I was, but let's put it this way. Some tips for harvesting pine pitch. Tip 1, you'll want to get some maybe screwdriver or butter knife or some kind of flat metal tool to scrape it off. Excuse me. And you'll want to have a glass jar that you put it into. Now know that your tool for harvesting pine pitch and your klee, your container for making your pine pitch preparations, may never get the pitch out of them because it's so incredibly sticky. So once you've got your mason jar or your little knife that's for pine pitch, it will always be for pine pitch. Don't try and repurpose it for something else, because it'll carry that pine, unless you like the pine smell and taste. It's not harmful if there's a little bit of residue left over. Okay, step 2 is if you get some on your finger, and the one that I just played with was pretty dry, but this one that's pretty wet, and it doesn't matter which one you use, the dry or the wet, both are fine. If it gets on your finger and your fingers are sticking together and it's just an awful feeling, you might to try and wash it off with soap and water, or maybe even pour some alcohol on it. But you would need an incredibly high content of alcohol to get that off. The better way to get it off your fingers is to put a little bit of oil, any kind of oil, olive oil, apricot oil, avocado oil, any kind of oil, canola oil, whatever, and just kind of rub your fingers together, and that will break it down and get rid of the stickiness. But you may choose to use gloves and disposable gloves and toss them, or some other kind of glove that's just used for this purpose that you'll want to keep. Basically never being able to wash it, because that'll be a sticky mess. You don't want to put this in your washing machine, by the way. So the other trick that I learned was that when you harvest pitch, I'm going to turn this so you can see some more that I'm finding on the tree. You can put it into a plastic bag and pop it into the freezer, because there's a nice little ant on there. Because freezing it will just help it pop right off the side of the bag. And if it's freezing cold, you can take it right from the bag and pop it right into your jar. And that way, if it's ooey and gooey and, soft or whatever, you might just want to freeze it up first in a bag and then pop it out right into your jar. And then, of course, that would take care of it. I saw another bit here. Where is it? Okay, so those are some different options. Here's some more of what to do with pine pitch. There we go. Okay, time for another video. Okay, so the pine needles. Pine needles, as I said, in Israel, I have been told by Nicole that you can use them interchangeably. Pine needles make a really excellent tea for respiratory and lung issues, which is great to know during COVID times and all times, during flu times, during cold season times, during any respiratory issue time. You can boil up the pine needles and deconcoct them. Deconcoct means to apply direct heat, as opposed to an infusion, which it's, you're pouring hot water on top of your herb and letting it infuse, covered or uncovered, although it's better always to cover to keep the volatile oils inside. But because of the high content of volatile oils in pine, that can be super hard on our kidneys and livers to process. And so I would limit this to emergencies and short-term use. Use sparingly, but if you need it, use it. Don't be afraid. And of course, you can also put pine needles on boiling water, inhale the steam to deal with any kind of mucus buildup or respiratory issue. That's another wonderful, wonderful way to get it into your lungs. People can smoke pine. You can smoke the resin or the needles. I haven't, but I will probably take up herbal smoking at some point. Let's see. Of course, you can use bark, and you can use the inner bark and this kind of thing here. I'm gesturing, but you can't even see what I'm gesturing to. But why? Why do that? If you can leave the roots alone, leave the bark alone, not harm, here I'm gesturing with the tree, not harm the tree in any way, that's an ultimate goal. Again, if your tree needs pruned anyway and you want to, cut a branch or nick a branch and get some of this pitch before you prune the tree, could be, but just remember that the energy of the tree then goes into repairing itself. So we're really taking from a tree that needs to repair herself. So do that in a mindful way, and be sure to not harm the tree, and plant more trees while you're at it. Just do that. Pine nuts also fall from the trees. I'm gonna the angle, and again, okay, so here's some open pine cones. What happens is the pine cones start closed, like the one I showed you at the beginning. Hang on, trying to find another one. Can you find another closed pine cone? One of the new ones? Oh, here's one over here. Which one?
That one at the top.
Oh yeah, okay. Here's this one's even better. It's closer. Okay, so here we go. Here's hello pine in the eye. Okay, so maybe it's kind of dark in here, so the lighting isn't totally amazing. There we go. Okay, so it's all closed up. It's a baby pine. I actually learned from Hanna Mashkovitz, I'm probably ruining her name, I'm sorry, I apologize, that you can use the really young pine cones and tincture them and use them as well for similar purposes and more. But anyway, okay, so they will start to open, and when they start to open, they will drop their pine seeds on the ground. Now, this isn't exactly the season, but my kids often will look, hey, if you guys find any pine seeds, I mean, there's like animal poop and stuff here, which is great. But if you find any of the pine seeds,
Right here.
Oh, here, yeah, that's a pine cone that's all dried up. Well, if you see any seeds, let me know.
There's another one that's all dried.
And yeah, I'm looking around, not seeing any. But anyway, you can kind of, my kids crack those with rocks and just pop those pine seeds, or as we call them, pine nuts, into their mouths. And they are so nutritious, so high in protein.
The inside is like a liquid, but the outside is hard, and
They taste like milk.
Instead of the milk being processed, it's just milk straight from the tree.
Milk straight from the tree. Wow, I love that. So, I find the pine nuts a little different. The ones you get in stores have this kind of like almost a stale taste, like a bacony kind of, I don't know, I can't describe it. But the ones you get straight from the tree are just so full of life and incredible. Look at that beautiful slant of the trunk there. So beautiful. But pine nuts are super nutritious. They're a food, they are a medicine, they're high in protein and healthy fats and oils. So the pine trees really give us so much. And pine pollen, which I had completely forgotten about until this very moment, is an incredible food and male virility herb. It is not the season, and maybe when it is, we'll revisit this. But yeah, that's another incredible medicinal use of the pine tree. So we're standing underneath it. I wanted to kind of get out from it and give you
Trees also give you
one last
shade.
shot. Trees do give you shade.
That's the case if you've been on a hike for like hours. Find a tree.
Okay, so here, this humble pine tree, this Aleppo pine, it's so humble. They grow all over. We ignore them. We don't pay any attention to them. We're looking around. We're looking at, herbs that people are, whatever, all these wild growing things. And that's great. That's great. I mean, look at this. We've learned so much about these different medicines here, but we kind of ignore the pine, and the pine is just extraordinary. But again, use with care, use sparingly, use it when you need it. It's here for you. But especially those internal uses that can prove hard on the liver and kidneys, use that with carefulness and sparing. I think we have some leftover pollen here.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. These are usually here. Kelly's got some. Hang on, let me focus. They're usually covered in like a yellow or orangey powder, and that's the pollen that you want to collect. And the way you collect that is, let me see if I can, is you just get a paper bag and you hold the branch, put the paper bag around the branch and just shake it to get the pine pollen off. So, wow, I thought I wouldn't have a lot to say about pine and I'd be done in a few seconds, but that rarely happens, does it? But anyway, pine pitch, I'm not going to collect from this tree because there's just such a small amount. But certainly if my kid needed a Band-Aid, or we were, out in the wild and, there was some kind of infection or something that I noticed that was red or pussy or bothering one of my kids, I would definitely say grab a bit of that pitch and just smear it right over. It's very protective and is going to kill the germs inside. So thanks for joining us. Please let me know when you want to make a special plant walk for us. I'm seeing some green pine cones. Well, we could stare at this tree all day because there's so many different parts of the life cycle represented in the tree at any given moment. The tree it's not like herbs. Herbs are just kind of, they have their life cycle and they typically die off pretty quickly. But trees, are here before us and long after us. And so, yeah. So it's the symbol of Ancient Roots Israel. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week on the virtual Plant Walk. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ancient Roots Israel, and check us out at Instagram, Facebook, ancientrootsisrael.com, and any of the other places that I'm forgetting right now. Also, if you would like to hire me personally, you can check out www.wisewomanfertility.blogspot.com, where I provide services about women's health and sexuality, college teaching, fertility awareness, and much more. So take care, and thanks for joining us. See you next week. Bye.